This will be something we could never have imagined. The deep state is destroying our nation, but the tables must turn and we will quickly destroy the deep state. We know where the bodies are buried. There are a lot of people out there that have done some very, very evil things, very bad things, I would say treasonous things against our country. People that have done such harm to our country. I've been looking at them for a long time. We could order the investigation and prosecution of individuals who we perceive as enemies. Put them all in jail where they belong. You gotta get tough and smart, and you have to fight fire with fire. You can't allow this to go on. And I will be the one to clean it up. I am your retribution.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Today is March 10th, 2025, and we got a lot of stuff to cover today. A lot of stuff happened up over the weekend. Shout out to everybody watching. Drop your comments down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. We're going to jump into some quite a few stories today. One of them is going to be Elon Musk. He sat down with an interview on Fox. We're going to watch that. I haven't seen that yet, so we're going to watch that together. We're going to talk about Vance being followed by pro-Ukraine protesters. We're also going to touch on the armed man that was shot by Secret Service near the White House. Trump laying the smackdown on a troublemaker, i.e. a reporter from leftist Legacy News. Kristi Noem shuts down CBS Margaret's Brennan with two simple reminders about ICE and Border Patrol. We're going to talk a little bit about Tom Homan and Donald Trump saying, hey, man, there is something wrong with the Democrats. Bill O'Reilly, predictions on Democrats' worst nightmares. We're going to dive into Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom launched a podcast, and there's some controversy specifically pertaining in the Democrat Party about what Gavin Newsom had to say. D.C., not only are they clearing up the BLM stuff in D.C., but they're also clearing out the homeless. Lindy Lee on Biden's brain just absolutely melting down, and Vivek on DOGE. Again, shout out to everybody watching. Drop your comments about this, all this good stuff in the comment section down below. So Elon Musk, there was a Twitter attack, or excuse me, an X attack. And this X attack happened today, March 10th, 2025. And in this interview, Musk addresses some of that stuff. He is the man with the chainsaw, the Elon Musk chainsaw massacre, if you would. We're going to jump into some of that cyber attack stuff and see what he had to say in this interview. Let's get all this dialed in here. Let's jump into this interview.
All right, we welcome to the show and a special interview with Mr. Elon Musk, who, of course, is famed Trump advisor, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, chair of X Corp. Elon, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to begin, but among other things, everyone's attacking you for your position. What are you doing in the government? There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced.
Yes.
It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website, is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet. Okay, good. But I just was looking back. Let me just see if I get this right. They're setting fire to various Tesla charging stations near Boston. Shots were fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Various nonviolent...
Shots fired, not a metaphor.
Shots fired, yes. Downtown New York, marching against the Tesla showroom. Your stock is way down. You've been criticized left and right.
But look on the bright side.
I mean, why are you doing this?
Always
That's
look on
really what people
always look
wanna
on the
know.
bright side of life.
Yes, I'm an optimist.
But besides that,
Yes, I mean,
how's your day?
what motivates you to do this?
Was the opera good?
It's tough sledding.
Yeah, it is tough sledding. But I think we're doing the right thing here. There's been a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. When you're part of the government, you saw a lot of that, and there's been, if you look at the Inspector General reports and the Government Accountability Office, there have been many audits that have pointed out that there's a tremendous amount of waste and fraud in the government. In fact, there was a report issued by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, last year. So during the Biden administration, which estimated the federal government fraud to be $500 billion. So just to be clear, that's not a Trump administration thing, that's a Biden administration thing. So what we're trying to do is get that number down to a much smaller figure, save money for the American taxpayer, stop money being spent on things that I think very few taxpayers would agree make sense. Transgender animal surgeries, or why are we spending money? Why are American tax dollars being spent on this? The president's gone through a long list of absurd things. Why are the 20 million people who are definitely dead marked as alive in the Social Security database? Why were hundreds of millions of dollars of Small Business Administration loans were given out to people aged 11 and under, according to the Social Security? I mean, these must be some very enterprising 8-year-olds,
And some pretty strong 150-year-olds.
Yes, exactly. As the president said, we have an enormous number of people marked as alive who are 160. He didn't know the country was that healthy.
Yes. So demystify this. How do you do it? Okay. How big is your team?
Yeah.
Where'd you recruit most of them from? And what is it that makes you choose, the Treasury or Social Security or USAID? How does it work? Let the public know, please.
Right. Well, we just basically follow the money. We look at the president's executive orders, and we also just follow the money. So we started looking closely at USAID because they were completely violating the president's executive orders to suspend foreign aid, what's called foreign aid, but in our view is a lot of corruption. So what we saw there is just a tremendous amount of money being sent to non-governmental organizations. But actually, this, by the way, is I think one of the biggest sources of fraud in the world is government-funded non-governmental organizations. This is a gigantic fraud loophole where the government can give money to an NGO, and then there are no controls over that NGO. So they've given billions of dollars, in fact, we estimate tens of billions of dollars to NGOs that are essentially scams.
By the way,
I'm trying to put a stop to that. So
I don't want to interrupt, but Secretary of State Rubio just come out, I think he tweeted today, he has accepted over 80% of your recommendations to shut down in USAID.
Right.
So your review and analysis was spot on.
Yes. So I think when people criticize, say, what DOGE is doing, we say, well, which part specifically? Because we put all of the actions of the DOGE team on the doge.gov website and on the DOGE handle on X. So we post the receipts. So it's like this action has been taken, this action has been taken. So when we get criticism, we say, like, of what? Which line do you disagree with? Like which cost saving do you disagree with? And then people usually can't think of any.
No.
So
it's transparent line by line.
It's transparent line by line,
which is quite remarkable.
Right. And so, and then with respect to the Treasury, for example, the two main recommendations we suggested, which have now been implemented, was that any payments going out of the Treasury especially the Treasury's main payment computer, which is called PAM, things like a payments account manager or something like that. But it's like almost $5 trillion a year, so about $1 billion an hour, that the payments be coded with the congressional appropriation, and that there be an explanation for the payment. Very basic stuff. And just doing that, we estimate will save $100 billion a year.
You're not really, let me see if I get this right, particularly with Social Security, you're not really changing policy.
No, yes.
You're auditing the fiscal mechanisms to make sure that, you know, from point A gets to point B, and that's where it's supposed to get to. In some cases, it doesn't get there, or in some cases, it may go over there. But that's it's not a policy exercise. You're not changing laws. You're just doing what any business would do in a profit and loss audit.
I think we're really what we're adding here is caring and competence, and there's a massive amount of fraud of basically people submitting Social Security numbers for Social Security benefits, unemployment, Small Business Administration loans, and medical, where those are fake Social Security numbers, or they're stolen somebody else's Social Security number, and we're trying to put a stop to all of that. And that's the number which is estimated to be on the order of 10% of federal expenditures, which is, you know, half a trillion dollars.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
You're working with the agency heads. You're working with the cabinet secretaries.
Yes.
I saw Howard Lutnick was on TV yesterday saying you were partnering with them. Is that fair?
Yeah, what we do is in consultation with the cabinet secretaries and with their departments. So we're really trying to be sort of, we'll refer to ourselves as tech support. You know, we're really helping the department get a handle on things, because what actually happens here is you've got this sort of vast federal bureaucracy, and then you've got a very thin layer on top of the politically appointed officials, and what tends to happen is that the bureaucracy, frankly, is in control. And they largely ignore the politically appointed people.
Why should the bureaucracy?
I'm sure you must have seen that.
I've lived with this twice. I worked for Reagan many years ago, and I worked for Trump in the first term.
Yeah.
It's like a permanent bureaucracy. I might add, it's a permanently liberal bureaucracy.
Yes, very much so.
And it doesn't, it's not a bureaucracy that necessarily enforces or implements presidential policy.
They don't. In fact, they try their best to thwart presidential policy. So the president is the elected representative of the people. And if the president cannot get things implemented as a reflection of the will of the people, then what we have is not a democracy, we have a bureaucracy. We have rule of the bureau, not rule of the people. And that's what we're trying to defeat here is the bureaucracy and have rule of the people. You know, and as you mentioned, the bureaucracy is overwhelmingly Democrat. So Washington, D.C. was 92.5%, I believe, voted for Kamala. So this is overwhelmingly a deep blue situation.
How do you pick your next targeted agency or department?
Well, we're trying to act broadly across all departments, so it's not just one department at a time. Are you
in all of them now? All of them?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes. Oh.
We're trying to make the government more efficient across the board. So yeah.
How big's your team?
We're a little over 100 at this point. We're going to get to 200.
You're going to get to 200.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're recruiting from where? More or less.
Basically, it's software people, you know, information security software people, and finance. You know, it's basically, yeah, finance and technology. I mean, frankly, I can't believe I'm here doing this. It's kind of bizarre, but I kind of think that we've got this enormous federal budget deficit, and it's a $2 trillion deficit. It keeps growing. Our interest payments are higher than our Defense Department budget. That's I think was the real wake-up call for me, was looking at seeing that the interest payments on national debt exceeded the Defense Department budget, and that was only growing over time, which meant if we didn't do something about this, then there won't be any money for anything. We'll just be servicing debt.
And you know how to read an income statement, and you know how to read a balance sheet. You've had some business experience. I'm kidding, but
yeah,
you know about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just don't want America to go bankrupt.
So it's a call to action. You're hearing a call to action.
Yeah.
You giving up your other stuff? I mean, how are you running your other businesses?
With great difficulty. Yeah, I mean.
But there's no turning back, you're saying?
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud, and so far we're making good progress, actually. So our savings at this point exceed $4 billion a day. Mm-hmm. So it's very significant.
You think you'll wind up getting to $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Of savings?
I mean, unless we're stopped, we will get to $1 trillion of savings.
And that stuff can be translated. I mean, we've been talking. We had Russell Vogt, the OMB director, on earlier, through very rescission authority, impoundment authority. But I believe you said it earlier. It's an audit that will not gather dust on shelves. This is actually going to wind up with real savings, bend the spending baseline down.
Yeah. There've been many good audits, like I said, done by inspector generals and by Government Accountability Office, and they just haven't been implemented. Nothing's been done. I think the GAO identified there were 17 million dead people in the Social Security database several years ago. It's now 20 million, but nobody did anything about it. I think you can sort of look at this as a complaint minimization optimization. So basically, if the government sends money out to, whether it's wasteful or fraudulent, nobody complains if they receive money, but they do complain if they don't receive money. And the people that complain the loudest are the ones receiving the fraudulent money.
Yep.
And you're on it.
Yeah. I mean, so the goal here is let's not have America go bankrupt with waste and fraud. So that's what I'm here for, and we're making good progress.
Yes, you are. You're going to go another year?
Yeah, I think so.
Final report, middle of next year?
Well, we're just getting things done as opposed to writing a report. Like I say, reports don't mean anything. You got to actually take action.
Yes.
So the waste report in entitlement spending, which is which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. Because that's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $700 billion a year. That is also a mechanism by which the Democrats attract and retain illegal immigrants by essentially paying them to come here, and then turning them into voters.
Yes.
So this is why the Democrats are so upset about the situation, because they're losing. If we turn off this gigantic money magnet for illegal immigrants, then they will leave, and they'll lose voters.
But you have President's support. He said so again yesterday. He completely supports your operation.
Yeah. Well, thanks. But that's super. Without the President's support, we couldn't make any progress here. Yeah, I mean, where you'll see the biggest outcry is from the Democrats who are, they don't want the waste and fraud to be turned off because it is a gigantic magnet to attract illegal immigrants and have them stay in the country. And I mean, you see some of the crazy stuff, like where money from FEMA, which is FEMA is an agency that's meant to take care of Americans in distress. and a bunch of their money was being sent to pay for luxury hotels in New York for illegal immigrants.
Crazy.
And that was happening even after the president was elected, and even after he signed an executive order saying that needs to stop. So we actually made sure that that money did stop going, because obviously it's outrageous that American taxpayer money is spent on luxury hotels for illegals. But you have to say, like, why was that being done? It was because the Democrats are trying to import voters, basically.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah. And that's also why there's no voter ID needed. In fact, in California and New York State, you're not allowed to show voter ID.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that seem insane?
Insane.
Yeah.
I say that as a New Yorker. It's insane.
Yeah, insane.
And it violates the entire Constitution and the principles behind it.
Yes.
Producers are yelling at me to get out. I don't want to end this interview because it's too much fun.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you one thing, 20 seconds? Nothing to do with DOGE. Can you rescue the astronauts?
Yes, we're bringing them back in a few weeks.
Is that
So not only is Elon Musk rescuing astronauts from outer space that NASA failed to bring home. They were only supposed to be up there for a short period of time, and they've been up there for a long time. Not only is he doing that, he is saving trillions of dollars of government waste, fraud, and abuse. And based on this interview, him speaking, saying, you know, it's tough. It's tough for him to run his existing companies and do this. This guy is sleeping on the floor, not sleeping on the floor. He's not sleeping at his house, but he's working around the clock to do this. Donald Trump had a mandate to get this done by 2026. And he is working his butt off to make sure that this comes out great. Tesla stock is down 38%, excluding the vandalisms from personal vehicles and vehicles in the dealership that are getting destroyed because people are upset that Elon and the Trump team are exposing waste, fraud, and abuse. It's crazy. He doesn't need this. He doesn't need this, guys. He doesn't need all the bull crap, but he wants to do this because he doesn't want to see America go bankrupt. Let me know what you guys think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. And let me know what you think about that Elon interview on Fox. We're going to jump into Vance. Vance was followed by pro-Ukraine protesters while on a walk with his 3-year-old. He was on a walk, and protesters were bothering him, basically. They were yelling, they were screaming. I'm going to read this article here from One American News. One American News, this was published March 9th, 2025. Vice President J.D. Vance reported that he was confronted by pro-Ukraine protesters while he was on a walk with his 3-year-old daughter. On Saturday, Vance posted on X, while he was out on a walk with his toddler, the protest approaches him. Today, while walking, this is what he posted. Today, while walking with my 3-year-old daughter, a group of protesters followed me around and shouted at my daughter as my daughter grew increasingly anxious and scared. This is what Vance posted. I decided to speak with the protesters and hope I could trade a few minutes of conversation of them leaving my toddler alone, he continued. Nearly all of them agreed. J.D. Vance posted this on X today while walking with my 3-year-old, which I had already read. Vance, based on this article, Vance did not specify what he talked about to the protesters. However, the encounter comes after Donald Trump paused all military aid to Ukraine after the back and forth argument in the Oval Office on February 28th with the Ukraine president, Mr. Zelensky. Throughout the meeting, Trump and Vance accused Zelensky of not being grateful, which he wasn't, for supporting the U.S. for the support the U.S. has already provided, while adding that Ukraine leader was in a bad position at the negotiating table. This, to me, along with the vandalization of Tesla vehicles and the continuous threats, I could imagine these are the threats that are being actively published on social media platforms and on the news. I can only imagine what is happening behind closed doors, what people are receiving messages or quote unquote death threats or threats in general because of this entire administration. This is a breaking video of protesters. JD Vance emerges, and this is what occurred here. This is a 40-second clip.
So we're forcing both the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Right here, won't settle.
Exactly. They certainly invaded Ukraine in 2022.
And
But there needs to be a settlement. Ma'am,
They are the aggressor every time.
ma'am, I understand that that's your view, and certainly they have, and certainly I have condemned, ma'am, please, you're interrupting. I'm speaking with you, and I'm trying to be respectful. I have condemned the invasion, but I've also condemned the potential. That is the policy of the administration. And I've talked to you guys now.
You can see right there at the end of that clip, JD Vance has his hand on a stroller here where his 3-year-old daughter is. Imagine that. Imagine what this 3-year-old is thinking when these people are yelling. She has no idea what's going on, but these people are yelling at her in the direction of her and her father. This is disgusting and completely inappropriate. There's Secret Service all the way around. The 3-year-old doesn't know what's going on. I commend JD Vance for at least approaching these protesters and saying, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a few minutes of my time, but in exchange for the few minutes of my time, I'm asking you to leave us the F alone. Period. End of story. Hard stop, as they would say, right? I want to know what you guys think about these protesters jumping at JD Vance while he was with his 3-year-old. I think it's gross. I don't think it's appropriate. Caroline Levitt had something to say about this on Fox and Friends. Let's jump into that clip.
And heckled by pro-Ukrainian protesters. Such an ugly scene. What's your reaction to what he dealt with there?
It was very sad to watch those videos and to hear directly from our vice president about this situation, especially since he was with his daughter on a walk, clearly trying to enjoy private family time. But unfortunately, this is the world and the country that we live in. But I think it's very telling that these protesters were out there hooting and hollering about Ukraine. This is who the Democrat Party has become. It's the party of foreign countries and putting America last. And I applaud the vice president. He is a man of integrity and a family man for engaging with these protesters and trying to explain to them he and President Trump's common sense point of view on this issue. But it was definitely sad to see.
Well, you know, Caroline, you and I have had the opportunity to both spend a lot of time around President Trump and Elon Musk. There's a lot of palace intrigue about what's happening in.
We'll jump into that clip here in a little bit. But you know, we saw that clip with the upside down United States American flag. Honestly, if these individuals, I don't know, it's gross. It's sickening to me that they would do that when he was with his daughter. We've given a lot of money to Ukraine, a lot. And Donald Trump at the Oval Office on February 28th, Donald Trump and JD Vance, along with Mark Rubio thought that the mineral deal was signed. And Zelensky did a complete rug pull and then was kicked out of the White House. Shortly after that, Zelensky went on X and began to say thank you to everybody in the United States for supporting him. Too little, too late. Let me know what you guys think about that. Drop it down in the comment section down below. On over the weekend, a suicidal armed man shot at Secret Service agents near the White House. This is bananas. According to One American News, suicidal armed man shot by Secret Service agents near the White House. Secret Service agents engaged in a confrontation with an armed man near the White House on Sunday, ending with agents shooting the man during the incident. The man was reportedly a suicidal individual who traveled to Washington, D.C. from Indiana. The encounter took place shortly after midnight on Sunday, just a block away from the Eisenhower Executive Office building. As officers approached, the individual drew his firearm, and an armed confrontation ensued. Secret Service personnel were involved in a shooting following an armed encounter with a person of interest shortly after midnight on March 9th at 17th and G Streets. Prior to the shooting, the man arrived. The man's arrival was alerted by Secret Service and local police as a potential suicidal risk. The suspect was transported to an area hospital where his condition is currently unknown. There are no reports injuries to the Secret Service personnel. Kudos to that. The incident is under investigation by the Metropolitan Police Department Internal Affairs Division investigation team, which investigates all law enforcement officers involved in the shooting of the District of Columbia.
Breaking news coming from the US now, and the US Secret Service has shot a man near the White House in Washington, D.C. That's according to our colleagues at NBC News in the States. It happened shortly after midnight, after an armed confrontation with law enforcement, according to the Secret Service there. They say local police had reported what they described as a suicidal individual who had possibly traveled to Washington, D.C. from Indiana. They later located a vehicle and spotted a person on foot who matched the description. They then brandished a firearm, the report says, and an armed confrontation ensued, during which shots were fired by Secret Service personnel, they've confirmed. The man was shot and has been taken to hospital. And this all happened on the intersection of 17th Street and F Street Northwest, which is near the White House in Washington, D.C. So just to reiterate, the US Secret Service has shot a man near the White House in Washington, D.C. He has subsequently been taken.
You know, I'm not sure what's going on with the particular rhetoric. I do know what's going on with the rhetoric. Let me rewind that. Let me rewind that a little bit. The constant rhetoric from leftist legacy media. Prior to Donald Trump being elected, during his presidential campaign, they were saying and comparing this man to Hitler. They were saying that he's a threat to democracy. What do you think that does to somebody that has suicidal ideations or that is easily influenced by leftist legacy media? These people are completely unhinged. And the rhetoric, this is just my personal opinion, the rhetoric from the left that continues to this day, is uncalled for. And you saw that when Trump when he had that address joint Congress, and the Democrats didn't even stand up. They didn't even stand up for DJ Daniels, the child with cancer. They didn't stand up for Lincoln Riley's family. What do you think this does to people that already have mental instability issues? Whatever happened to any information on the would-be assassin from Butler, Pennsylvania, or Roth from the second incident? These people are unhinged, and I said it. I said it before. It's gross. It's disgusting to me. And imagine if this was flipped. If this was flipped on the other side, if Republicans or MAGA supporters, if you would, were destroying cars and this incident right here with the shootout, it would be all over the news 24/7. Because it is against Trump. This is just, at least in my personal opinion, this is why mainstream media is not covering this enough.
Midnight last night, Secret Service personnel encountered the individual's vehicle parked around near 17th and F Street Northwest. Short time later, they observed an individual on foot matching the description. As officers approached, the individual brandished a firearm, at which time an armed encounter ensued and Secret Service personnel discharged their service weapons.
Let me know what you guys think about that.
On this, let's bring in former New York State Homeland Security Advisor Michael Balboni. Mr. Balboni, thanks for joining us this afternoon. You know, the White House complex really does seem to draw this type of thing. How does the U.S. Secret Service combat that?
Secret Service has developed a 360-degree, multiple layers of defense, where obviously you have the physical protection of the White House itself, and then you have numerous cameras and surveillance. You have great intelligence, which is what this case, by the way, showed, that you had information that this individual was going to be in the area possibly, and they had additional information. That's the most important element in trying to prevent something, as opposed to just responding to it. But, you know, this fits into a larger piece. Obviously, the 2 attempted assassinations of the president, these have raised huge issues as to what the Secret Service knew beforehand, before the events, and how the individuals were able to get into the positions, whether in Butler, Pennsylvania, or in Florida itself. Obviously, the case with the Florida shooter is going to be going to court. There's a bunch of legal proceedings going on right now. But again, raising big questions as to how someone could be lying in wait for 12 hours outside of a golf course. So it raises all sorts of issues, especially when you have somebody as high profile and in many circles as controversial as President Trump.
There have been leadership changes. There have been recommendations on how Secret Service should change the way it operates. Do you think that that's been enough? You think Secret Service is back on track here?
What I always wanted to see was the Congress did a very in-depth hearing and investigation in this, and I wasn't really so satisfied as to what really happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And so I think that President Trump has said he really wants to get to the bottom of both of those incidents, and he's going to continue to look very strong in those issues and direct all his agencies to share information, which is really important, re-examine the training that people get, and also a lot of the issues. Remember what Secret Service does. They work with local law enforcement when the president is traveling. So what type of relationships do they have? It's absolutely crucial. When I was the Homeland Security Advisor here in New York City, when the Pope came to visit, when we had national security events, working with the Secret Service was absolutely essential. But again, has that changed? Could it get better? These are all the questions that need to be done right now, especially given the Trump presidency.
And the Trump administration also, and speaking of your city, is canceling $400 million in grants to Columbia University because of these ongoing protests that we've seen. What do you make of what's going on at Columbia? And do you think that there's going to be any changes from the university, given what the administration's doing?
So currently, the Department of Justice and the Department of State are examining what has gone on the campuses. First of all, let's be clear. Anti-Semitic behavior, anti-any other group behavior on campus should never be allowed if it involves any type of violence itself. And so, what you have here, obviously, you have that fine line between the ability to protest and then the safety of other students. And so the Department of Justice is taking this very seriously. In fact, the Department of State has announced today that they're revoking visas for several of the students that have been pro-Hamas supporters who have committed violent acts. See, that should be the metric. If you commit a violent act on campus, you shouldn't be allowed on campus, period. And if you have a visa or you're here illegally, you should definitely be deported. In terms of Colombia, Colombia has always been a little bit of a hotbed of dissent and voices in protest. That, again, should be allowed, but in a way where you don't discriminate against any other group or provide any type of threat.
Do you think that Colombia is going to have to close down its campus if this goes on for more months?
Yeah, again, terribly challenging choices for Colombia itself. First of all, you got people coming on campus who aren't even students. And what we saw last year with many of the campus protests, there were agitators there, professional agitators. And some circles say that they were perhaps connected to foreign agencies, trying to stir up dissent, particularly in advance of the presidential election. What also makes this challenging is that, these individuals are going there with masks on to try to hide their identity. And they're trying to do things just to create a scene of chaos itself. That should not be a part of the academic experience, especially with institutions with the history of Colombia.
Yeah, Colombia's gotten within its faculty a lot of criticism from bringing in law enforcement. Is this something that Colombia can handle on its own?
It depends upon what the security procedures are, and many times universities, they will provide security, obviously, for the safety of their students, but this is beyond that. This is now something where you have to take an aggressive action, both in terms of knowing who's on your campus, having a good intelligence set, having the right surveillance, but yet not go into that, George Orwell 1984, where you're going to survey everybody and know what people are doing all the time, because you want to have an area and an air of academic freedom and the ability to protest. So it's an incredibly fine line. It's very challenging for universities like Columbia. I predict that Columbia is really going to beef up their internal investigations and internal capabilities to decide who should be on campus and who should not, and then take steps to prevent people who shouldn't be there from being on campus.
All right.
Crazy. Trump layeth the smacketh downeth, if you would, on a troublemaker reporter over the weekend. President Donald Trump wasted no time shutting down NBC after a reporter attempted to stir up controversy in the Oval Office, pushing a narrative that Secretary of State Marco Rubio had clashed with tech billionaire or tech support Elon Musk. During the press event focused on the upcoming FIFA World Cup, the NBC reporter asked Trump on the reports of the heated exchange between Rubio and Musk during the cabinet meeting. The president immediately said, "Fake news, fake news. There was no clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker." Trump shot back at the NBC reporter, who continued pressing, and Donald Trump said, "You're not even supposed to be here, or you're not even supposed to ask these questions like this, because we're talking about FIFA."
No clash. I was there. You're just a troublemaker. And you're not supposed to be asking that question because we're talking about the World Cup. Elon gets along great with Marco, and they're both doing a fantastic job. There is no clash.
Mr. President, bottom line.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
NBC.
Oh, no wonder. That's enough. NBC.
Who has more authority, Elon Musk or the Cabinet Secretary?
Any other questions?
NBC lost a bunch of credibility. And if you remember correctly, back when Elon Musk and Donald Trump were interviewed by Hannity, Trump indicated, hey, they're looking to drive a wedge between us, and they're looking to drive a wedge in the administration itself.
They tried it, then they stopped. That wasn't. They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, they're trying to drive us apart. I said, absolutely. No, they said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. And I say, it's just so obvious. They're so bad at it. I used to think they were good at it. They're actually bad at it, because if they were good at it, I'd never be president. Because I think nobody in history has ever gotten more bad publicity than me. I could do the greatest things. I get 98% bad publicity. I could do, outside of you and a few of your very good friends, it's like the craziest thing. But you know what I have learned, Elon? The people are smart. They get it.
Yeah, they do,
They
actually.
get it. They really see what's happening.
Yeah.
People do see what is happening, and people are waking up and they're realizing, oh man, leftist legacy media has been lying to us. Specifically, eyes have been open since 2020 during the pandemic, plandemic, if you would. During that time, people were saying, oh, don't get the jab, don't get the jab, it's bad. Other people were saying, get the jab, it's good, it's good. But then all the information is coming out. All the information saying that the shots cause side effects. They have a bunch of side effects and they weren't tested. From the beginning, Donald Trump was saying this was made in China. All the reporters, leftist legacy media said, no, you're lying. But now everything's coming out. And why was Fauci pardoned? All the way back prior to the research, Fauci was pardoned. But that doesn't stop him from being prosecuted on a state level. Let me know what you guys think about Donald Trump shutting down the reporter immediately about this nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Caroline Levitt was on Fox and Friends about this particular scenario as well. And here's what she had to say about it.
Is like with, the rest of these government officials. Once and for all, can we dispel the rumors that there is some ongoing feud between Elon Musk, President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio? What do you say about that?
I can confirm there is no such feud. In fact, I was at Mar-a-Lago last night with President Trump, Elon Musk, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and all was well. The president convened a meeting last week with members of his cabinet and with Elon to talk about this historic effort that everybody is on board with to identify the waste, fraud, and abuse across our federal government. And the meeting was highly productive. It was an open dialogue and discussion, which is exactly what the president's team should be doing, engaging with one another to implement the president's goals. And so everybody is on board with President Trump's mission and DOGE's mission to identify this waste and fraud, to be good stewards of the American taxpayers' money. And both Elon and Marco are doing an incredible job in their respective roles. And that's true of everybody in President Trump's cabinet. He has really put together an extraordinary team. And I think it's pitiful that the mainstream media is working overtime to try to divide President Trump from Elon and from other members of his cabinet, but their attempts are failing. Everybody is working as one team towards one goal, and it's to make America great again.
There you go. The one team, one goal is to make America great again. The leftist legacy media will continue to spew these lies about the Trump team, to continue to cultivate division because they have nothing else to run on besides their ridiculous memes, besides their ridiculous bingo sign protests. They have nothing else to run on. We're going to jump into this next story here. Kristi, Noem, and illegal alien kids being detained. According to an article from the Gateway Pundit, Kristi Noem shut down CBS reporter with two simple reminders. When host complains about illegal aliens being detained, then Noem announces a new acting ICE director. Homeland Security Security Secretary Kristi Noem appeared on Face the Nation with far-left host and unsurprisingly shut her down during one critical part of the interview. She also made a significant announcement in the process. Noem was invited to discuss the United States' ongoing trade war with Canada and the Mexico border crossings and those leaking informations on the raids. People have been leaking information about when and where the raids are taking place. When the subject turned to border security, Brennan, the reporter, attempted to shame her over illegal alien kids and ICE detention centers with their parents in Texas, a policy revived by the Trump administration after Joe Biden ditched it.
But when it comes to reviving the policy of separating families from their children at the border,
we're actually reviving it.
That's what I want to ask you.
President Biden didn't follow the law. He didn't follow the law in the fact that it's always been equally applied until his administration. And then he made decisions to ignore federal law in how he handled immigration and enforcement within our borders. And so today we're expanding our team at ICE, and we're going to have an acting director in Todd Lyons, who has a long history with Tom Homan. They have worked together to build on these enforcement operations. We're also naming a deputy secretary in Madison Sheehan that was going to be another expansion of this team. They've done incredible work cleaning up our communities and making them safer. Adding more people to the team with Todd and with Madison is going to allow us to partner with local law enforcement officials to make sure that we truly are following through on enforcing the law. And if you break our law, then there's going to be consequences.
Exactly. Leads me into my next story. The facts do matter. Tom Homan slams Mayorkas about the border crisis. If you remember, Mayorkas and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were saying that the border was secure. Borders are Tom Homan lit into former Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas on Friday, saying the former Biden administration official lied from day one about the border. Mayorkas claimed that the border was secure on multiple occasions during the Biden administration, despite the fact the Border Patrol encountered millions of illegal immigrants since the start of the fiscal year of 2021. According to figures released by USA Customs and Border Protection, Homan said that Trump shut down the border. In less than a month, during an appearance on Fox News after the clip was played, Mayorkas claiming he opposed the so-called sanctuary cities. Border crossings are down almost 90% from February 2024 to February 2025. There were less than 9,000 attempts this year, with over, I believe, 166,000 from the previous year. Let's jump into this clip.
And a stunning claim from the former head of the Department of Homeland Security. Get this. Alejandro Mayorkas says he fought against sanctuary cities.
Why, after that individual's criminal justice sentence is served, why would a city leader release that individual onto the streets and refuse to cooperate with immigration authorities? It is something that I fought as the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security.
Tom Homan is Trump's border czar, and I gotta ask you, what did you think of that?
Well, his lips are moving means he's lying. He lied from day one. The bottom line is, how did he do on that quest to end sanctuary cities? Sanctuary cities tripled under his command. And he said he wanted to do something about it, but he didn't do it. And at the same time, he's talking about sheriffs releasing public safety threats and back on the streets. How about what he did on the southern border? We had 2.2 million known gotaways they did nothing about. They released national security threats through the border. They released people so quickly, they released them before vetting came back from the FBI. He was a failure as the Secretary of Homeland Security.
All right, here's another clip, right? Listen to the very end of this one. Watch.
I am very proud of what we did do. I would have liked to have wrestled with the question of communication and narration. I would have also liked to have taken on more forcefully the decline in empiricism. Facts actually matter.
Liar.
Think of that. It's almost as if he wanted the border open.
Exactly. Look, facts do matter. Under his leadership, a 600% increase in sex trafficking of women and children. 2.2 million known gotaways. These are people we knew crossed the border. You had a record number of people on terrorist watch list, over 400. Trump had 14 in 4 years. We had a 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl come across that open border. Massive failure, embarrassment to the position he holds.
Wanted to show you this because it's been driving me a little nuts. The Democrats for about 18 months said that there was nothing more they could do to help close the border because Congress hadn't passed a bill. Watch here. This is what they said.
It's the toughest, most efficient, most effective border security bill this country has ever seen.
Democrats were on their back foot on immigration. Now we are on our front foot.
Look, the president has been very clear. We need that bipartisan border security bill.
By any objective measure, it's strong, tough, and realistic.
I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law.
Look, a bill from Congress might be welcome, but you all have shown in 1 month you were able to shut down the border.
Because we got a strong president. President Trump did in 3 weeks what Joe Biden didn't do in 4 years. And that bipartisan border bill, look, I respect Senator Langford. He called me, walked through that bill with me. He asked me to support it. I said no. I'm not okay with 4,000 or 5,000 illegal aliens a day crossing this border as being normal. I don't want that in statute. I'm not okay with a bill that doesn't address sex trafficking of women and children. And right now, you look at the numbers, what President Trump has did, we went from an average at the highs of 10 to 11,000 a day under Biden to 200. 11,000 to 200. The gotaways that I spoke about, 1,800 a day average under Joe Biden. You know what I saw the other day? 41. 1,800 to 41. We won't be happy if that number is zero, but look at the strides President Trump made in 3 weeks that Joe Biden could have done.
Sir, there was some news that Bill Melugin broke last night about the deportation of migrant families. This is the number under the Biden years for the apprehended family units, as they call them, 2.6 million. What Melugin's saying is that the families have already had their cases heard. They've been ordered to be removed. And you're going into the interior of the country to find them. How many are in that number thus far, and what is your target?
I don't have a number right now, but I'll say this. President Trump is committed. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security, and that's what we're going to do. But I've also said if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. As far as families and other non-criminal illegal aliens, they can come to the border to claim asylum. They can demand to see a judge. They can demand due process, and we gave that to them. But at the end of that due process, an immigration judge says you must go home. Those orders need to be executed. Because if we don't, we send a message to the whole world, continue entering this country illegally, which is a crime. Go to court or not go to court, get order removed, and don't leave, and we're not going to come find you and remove you. You're never going to fix the issue. The bottom line is if we don't execute those orders, then might as well just shut down the immigration court, shut down the system, take border patrol off the border because there's no consequences to violating our law. As sad, as emotional, as controversial immigration enforcement is, it's something we must do to secure our border and save lives. When we send a message, regardless who you are, when you have to go home under a judge's order, that means less people come, which means less women get sexually assaulted by the cartels, which means less children die crossing the border, which means less Americans die from fentanyl, which means less women and children get sex trafficked. A secure border saves lives. You can't secure the border unless you have consequences for violating that border.
Today, the Trump administration announced the CBP Home app. Back during the Biden administration, it was the CBP1 app, which allowed individuals to book transit to sanctuary cities. But as of today, the CBP Home app was introduced, offering a new critical feature. That new critical feature is intention to deport, self-deport. Hey, it offers unlawful present aliens or those aliens whose parole has been revoked an orderly and defined voluntary process to notify the U.S. government their intent to deport the United States of America. This is a huge win. Guys, you can't The winning doesn't seem to stop here. The winning doesn't seem to stop. Donald Trump said that there is something wrong with the Democrats. President Donald Trump sat down for a Fox interview Sunday morning Futures, and discussed the current state of the Democrat Party. Trump shared that he believes there's something wrong with Democrats in power and believes the party is in serious trouble, even suggests they could become a minor party based on their recent antics. Let's jump into this.
I was surprised at the Democrats' behavior the other night because you delivered among the most diverse, expanded audience, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Yeah. So is it just the Democrat leadership that does not see that?
There's something wrong with them. It's just something, I can't even believe it. They lost an election in a landslide. They were talking about men playing in women's sports. When I looked the other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild, and the Democrats were having their little signs up, their little signs, their little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have. Transgender for everybody. And again, the men and women's sports, what is that, a 90-10 deal? I don't even know who the 10 would be. But they're fighting for it. And I try and say to myself, because you always like to understand where your opponent is, whether it's in business or anything else, is there something I don't understand? But we don't understand it.
I agree with Donald Trump. If their antics continue, they will be absolutely irrelevant. Republicans will continue to win election after election. There is no pronounced leadership in the Democrat Party. They are just all over the place. President Trump takes fierce shots at both Zelensky and Biden. During this same exclusive interview here, Donald Trump sat down with Sunday Morning Futures for an exclusive interview. Let's jump into this video. Trump on Zelensky. He took money out of this country under Biden like candy from a baby.
He took money out of this country under Biden like candy from a baby. It was so easy. With that same attitude. And I just don't think he's grateful. We gave him, in my opinion, $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. We gave him $350 billion, and he's talking about the fact that they have fought, and there's a bravery because somebody has to use the weapons. But without those weapons, don't forget, I was the one that gave him the javelins that was able to knock down all the tanks. Obama gave nothing. Look, if I were president, that would have never happened. You wouldn't have had Russia going into Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the whole situation with Hamas and October 7th. Would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They weren't giving it to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. You would have never had the worst evacuation anyone's ever seen, which is Afghanistan.
Trump continued to slam Zelensky for being ungrateful for the United States, gave him and his country hundreds of billions of dollars that have mostly gone to waste or up Zelensky's nose. Vigilant Fox, Bill O'Reilly, new predictions. Every Democrat's worst nightmare. Bill O'Reilly says Trump has driven the Democrat Party to an edge of total collapse. On Wednesday night's special of Como, Riley laid out exactly why the Democrats are in a free fall. Let's jump into this video.
Donald Trump last night did what he wanted to do. Number one, he got on the record that his accomplishments in the first 6 weeks were fairly extraordinary, which is true, both good and bad. And number two, he taunted the Democratic Party into making a myriad of mistakes. I think the Democratic Party is on the verge of collapse. And I liken it to 1931, when Herbert Hoover and the Republican Party basically said to the very suffering American people in the Depression, we're not helping you. You got to do it on your own. It's all about self-reliance. We're not going to give you any safety nets. That led to 5 consecutive Democratic wins. 5. Not until Dwight Eisenhower, 20 years later, did the Republicans recover. I see the same scenario for the Democrats. So I wrote a message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com, which I know you read every morning, first thing. It said, hey, didn't the far left, the Elizabeth Warrens, used to be against war, Vietnam, they're against Iraq, Afghanistan, they didn't want to whack Soleimani, Biden didn't even want to get bin Laden. Well, wasn't that their posture? But now, all of a sudden, they want to go in Ukraine and go and go and go and go. What happened? What happened was Trump hatred. And that's what the headline is of the speech last night. When you are hating someone, you lose all perspective. You lose all feeling. You're consumed. And I wrote a book that's going to be out in September called Confronting Evil. And these people who did all these terrible things, they all had one thing in common. They hated. They were just haters across the board. That's what you saw in that chamber last night.
I agree. Their Trump derangement syndrome, is overpowering their judgment. They are all lost and stumbled. They have no proper leadership. Let me know what you guys think about what Bill O'Reilly said. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Let me know. Alyssa Slotkin stumbles over herself when asked if she agrees with Gavin Newsom on men in women's sports. Gavin Newsom recently launched a podcast. If you guys haven't seen it, don't waste your time. Alyssa Slotkin failed to directly answer the question on Sunday when asked if she believes biological men should participate in women's sports after NBC News host, shoulder pads, Kristen Welker, asked her on the issue. Gavin Newsom stated on Thursday during his podcast, said that it is deeply unfair to have biological men participate in women's sports. This drew a major backlash within his party after playing a clip of Newsom's statement for Slotkin on Meet the Press. Welker asked her if she agreed with Gavin Newsom's stance. Let's jump into that clip.
Senator, do you agree with Governor Newsom?
Well, look, I think, you'll have to talk to Mr. Newsom and his podcast, and we're all talking about it now because it's, good controversy. For me, I grew up playing 3 seasons of sports. In Michigan, sports is like our religion, right? I wouldn't be here, I think, without the leadership training that I got in women's sports. But for me, it's like, let the local community figure this out, right? In Michigan, we have a process in place where if someone who's born a boy wants to play in women's sports, you have to get a waiver. We've had it happen 2 times in our entire state. So let the local communities, just like everything with schools, handle that issue. For me, though, I think, this issue is being sort of brought up in order to make sparks and see sparks fly.
The same could be said about driving the wedge in the Trump administration. Since the release of Newsom's first episode, Democrats in his own state have criticized his statements, with California legislators and the LGBTQ caucus issuing a joint statement saying that we're profoundly sickened and frustrated by Gavin Newsom's remarks. Despite Governor Gavin Newsom's statement, his track record shows he has supported pushing for transgender rights in his state, backing policies such as allowing men in women's sports, prisons, and permitting schools to privately transition kids without their consent. That is absolutely crazy. I would be freaking off the rails if that happened to me. Permitting schools to privately transition children without parents' knowledge or consent. Who the hell are you to transition my child without my consent? Get the heck out of here. Democrats have continued to push back on banning biological men from women's sports. The party's senator blocking GOP's protection of women and girls in sports act on March 3rd. Let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know if you did watch Gavin Newsom's first podcast episode. Charlie Kirk was his first featured guest. I think Gavin Newsom is flip-flopping to gain more popularity and middle ground because his potential plans to run for president. D.C. begins clearing out homeless camps 2 days after Trump issued ultimatum to the mayor. Washington, D.C. crews have begun clearing out homeless encampments Friday, 2 days after Donald Trump warned Democratic mayor to do so. Video posted on X shows Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department and personnel cleaning up encampments near U.S. Department of State building. One video posted on NBC Reporter shows Metropolitan police officers handcuffing a woman as she appears to protest. Another, posted by a freelance journalist, shows a line of vehicles and several personnel participating in this particular operation. Donald Trump is not messing around. They're also currently, as of today, March 10th, 2025, they are removing the street that was painted for Black Lives Matter. This move comes after Trump warned Browser to clean up the city, claiming the scene was unsightly in a Wednesday post on Truth Social. Here is the post on Truth Social. We notified the mayor of Washington, D.C. She must clean up all unsightly homeless encampments in the city, specifically including the ones outside the State Department near the White House. If she is not capable of doing so, we will force her to do so. Washington, D.C. must become clean and safe. We want to be proud of our great capital again. Thank you, Donald Trump. Lindy Lee went on the PBD podcast and spilled the absolute tea. She spilled the tea like somebody shaken with Parkinson's, just spilling the tea everywhere. Biden's brain was melting. This is what Lindy Lee said on the PBD podcast.
When Trump got assassinated and what was being said behind closed doors when that happened. Not he got assassinated, the assassination attempt. What was being said? Was there any...
Election's done. He won.
Who said that?
Democratic donors. Because you got to remember that Biden had COVID around this time, so the split screen was terrible. You had Trump triumphantly just demonstrating tremendous self-possession and courage on the stage, and then you had Biden struggling to go up the short steps to Air Force One. It could not have been starker. So my phone is blowing up that day. I remember vividly, July 13th, Butler, Pennsylvania, and a few hours from where I live, actually. And donors were just saying, it's done. We might as well just pack up and go home now. How do you beat a guy like that?
Was there
Exactly.
anybody any weird moments of anybody saying, shoot, I mean, close? Like, was there anybody that was disappointed that wasn't successful?
Oh, no. Other than losers on X, but you have to remember that the donors I'm dealing, they're like multimillionaires and billionaires. They're not dregs of society. They're not like trash on the streets who delight off the stuff. You know, they're not like, no one wants Trump dead. They wanted to beat him. I'm talking about the donor level, but there are a lot of Democratic influencers who are like straight up evil. They were like, oh, you know, we're so upset that the bullet didn't go 5 inches in another
Was there
direction.
any aides, any people that were working on the administration?
That's a step too far.
You think that's a step too
That's
far
a
for
step
them?
too far, yeah.
Okay, well,
I have to give credit where credit is due.
all right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's a little bit too evil for me.
you know, the story that came out right now, that there was a second accomplice. Rob, I don't know if you saw that or not, that there's another person
Pat,
involved.
I do want to say, though they didn't vocalize it, I can't promise that it didn't cross their mind. Because honestly, how do you beat a guy like that? You just can't. He became an absolute icon that day. You even had Mark Zuckerberg saying that was a badass thing to do. Mark Zuckerberg, who wasn't known to be a Republican.
Yeah. What's this one, Rob?
Oh, wow.
The would-be Trump assassin Thomas Crooks may have had accomplice. Data shows as investigator says FBI is suppressing info. Can you go a little bit lower? It's been 9 months since the seemingly mild-mannered 20-year-old attempted to assassinate then Republican presidential nominee Trump at a rally in Butler, and we still have no good reason why. Sources tell the FBI obstructed effort to solve the mystery, why Thomas Matthew Crooks, who left no manifesto, did what he did. It left local law enforcement as well. Those who may know Crooks' parents have refused all interviews and remain in their small 3-bedroom. Okay, go a little lower. So who's accusing of this, Rob? By the way, Musk, FBI Director Kash Patel is going to get to the bottom of this. Conservative Republican option, Elon Musk yelled out to the audience. A veteran private investigator, Ernie, who hired shortly after the fateful July 13 event at Butler, tried to look into the crimes. Doug Gavin, who's a team 6 investigators, have been working at the case for months and have interviewed 100 people, said they also conducted extensive geofencing. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I hope we get to the bottom of it because no one's really talking about it. I'm just wondering if there was anybody that was...
I just can't believe it even happened.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like such an obvious hole in the security perimeter.
But by the way, guys like Harry Sisson, that kind of blew up.
I know him very well.
So, you know, obviously he's very useful to the Democrats.
He's
and
very well compensated, I want you to know. He
By-
gets
by-
paid the DNC, by super PACs,
Oh,
by...
really?
Absolutely.
When you say well compensated, what type of numbers are you talking about
Hundreds of thousands?
per year?
I would imagine so. He's being paid by TikTok, by the DNC, by various Democratic firms like Good Influence.
Good Influence pays Harry Sisson.
I'm almost positive, yeah. Good Influence pays a lot of influencers.
Who else outside of him?
All of them are paid. Literally all of them. Like, Brooklyn Dad? Have you heard of him?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Who's he?
Doesn't even live in Brooklyn. He actually
doesn't.
relocated to Florida, but he's one of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a sham.
This guy.
I don't know who he is, though. Who is he?
A popular influencer from the left. He's very, very anti-Trump, very vocal.
Okay.
And JoJo from Jurors.
Joe who?
Bob, I like you already. I love the noises you're making. You know what catfishing
I know her.
is?
Yeah, I know her. So you're saying they're all getting paid?
You know what
Wow.
You know what catfishing is?
No.
When you have an avatar that looks nothing like who you
Oh,
actually
yes,
are.
yes.
I've seen this woman. She looks nothing like
Seriously?
nothing, not even close. That is the most airbrushed photo I've ever seen in my life.
Her eyes look like it's in
And
Russian. You
this
would
is
say
not
kukla, like
real
a doll.
person. This is an AI generated.
What does she look
something.
like in real life? Can we see what she looks like in real life? Like,
There are some actual photos of her, and she looks. It's like it's almost deceitful. It's deceitful.
she looks good. I don't know about.
Well, that's the photo that she posted. You can't trust any photos that she posts. It has to,
So, okay, so these guys are getting paid. I guess then my question would be, let's go a little bit deeper than that. Are they getting paid to say things they don't believe in?
Yes, because I know for a fact that.
Got it. So you don't think Harry Sisson believes in what he's saying?
I know that he didn't think that Biden was fit.
How do you know that? The way he described
Because
Biden
we shared
was.
a manager for like a month.
How many of you guys have seen Harry Sisson's posts? And then also, how many of you guys talk smack or troll his channel? Let me know down in the chat. I think this guy's. I don't think he believes his own stuff. I might be wrong.
You guys shared a manager together for a month. You're kidding me. He made it seem like Biden was a second dad to him.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I even spent more time with Biden than he did. I think he met Biden like twice.
And so he just said it because.
I do want to say, like, Harry, if you're listening to this, I mean, I still like you as a person. I'm sorry, but it is the truth. And you know I'm telling the truth. Like, you didn't think that Biden was fit.
Who did?
Here's the deal. Here's what happened. People were so terrified of Trump. They believed that he was an existential threat to democracy. So they were willing to say whatever it took to defeat him.
That you think he believes in? That Trump was an existential threat
He
to
definitely still believes that.
He just doesn't believe that Biden was a good fit to run.
No one thinks that. Other than if your last name wasn't Biden, and if you're not on the Biden gravy train, I don't think anyone believes that Biden was fit. It was so obvious. His brain was melting in real time. And that's why you read all those tweets that I wrote. Never once did I say he was mentally sharp. I just said, do you remember I said he was kind and compassionate? I was kind of trying to dance around. Like, they asked me to tweet this stuff, but I couldn't say that he had the intellect to do it. He didn't.
What did the DNC think about Vivek?
Non-factor.
Non-factor.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that they call themselves a party of diversity, but they attack these really prominent Indian Americans or minorities on the Republican side. Like, you see the viciousness that with which they've gone after Kash Patel. Like, what happened? I thought you were all for elevating minorities. So all of a sudden, Kash Patel is a monster. Like, what happened to the party of DEI? Something else I want to mention. I hate that DEI shit in the woke
She's spilling all the tea.
I want to be very clear. Asian Americans are not helped by DEI. We are one of the most highest scoring academic performers. So I see all of these critics in our replies saying, "Oh, but she's DEI." No, I'm an Asian American woman. I'm actually the demographic that is most hurt by these policies.
That is statistically true. Now, that's statistically true because they look at you as worse than white. I know that sounds kind of weird because especially these big universities.
Yes.
Harvard and a lot of these guys, when they look at the numbers because apparently you have an advantage because you get better grades and it's not fair because others should have an opportunity, not you because you get better scores on your SAT, et cetera, et cetera.
I got a 2390 on my SATs.
Are you bullshitting me? You got a 2390?
And by the way, I took the SATs 3 times and I got a 2390 on my second try. I took it again to get a perfect score. I scored lower the third time. I was like 23 something. But I got waitlisted by Harvard.
And I remember you got 2390 out of 2400.
Yes. And I got waitlisted by Harvard. I thought my life was over. But can you imagine if I were a Black American, if I had gotten a 2390?
You would have been the president.
Exactly.
Yeah. You would have been the president of Harvard overnight. Forget about it. She doesn't even need to go to school.
But what I mean is, it's just totally unfair. So yeah, for those numbskulls out there who don't understand how reality works. Hey guys, I'm so excited to be on Connect. I will answer.
Sorry guys, had to sneeze. Lindy Lee is spilling all the tea. She's spilling all the tea. Next up, we got Vivek on DOGE. Vivek Ramaswamy assesses DOGE with Laura Trump.
Vivek, I don't think I have to introduce you to anyone. You were born and raised here in Ohio, And obviously, we know you ran for president of the United States. Then you helped campaign for Donald Trump to become the 47th president. Now we're back here in Ohio right now because you're running for governor. And that kind of feels full circle to me.
It does. It's a new chapter. And one of the things I learned last couple of years, Lara, when I ran for president, and even in supporting President Trump after, is it opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of the issues that I cared most about, particularly reform in education and a couple of other areas, shouldn't be dealt with by the federal government. We don't need that in Washington, D.C. And President Trump, you see it even this last week, is moving a lot of that down to the states and to the people where those programs belong. And so it became clear to me that if I wanted to push those issues to the next stage, there was probably no better place for me to do it than as governor right here in my home state.
You have the Republican Party who, as you kind of just noted, brought in so many new voters, young voters, voters who were first time ever voting in their lives, some first time Republican voters. And I don't know if the Democrats know where they are in the grand scheme of things.
I think they don't. I think they're lost in the wilderness. And just speaking as an American, I hope they come out with a coherent vision, even if it's one that you and I may disagree with. Let them stand for something, because that'll allow us all to be the best version of ourselves. The Republican Party, on the other hand, it's a beautiful thing going on. On one hand, we have a big tent coalition of libertarians, previously orphaned Reagan Democrats, independents, constitutional conservatives. The MAGA party is now so broad that it actually allows for even differences of opinion on the small issues while still being united on the big issues of border security, of free speech and open debate, of economic growth, a belief in American exceptionalism. That's not just a formula for uniting the Republican Party. That's a formula for uniting the entire country around the ideals that the country was founded on in the first place.
I think something a lot of people are excited about, DOGE, something you started working on with Elon, several months ago. Give me your assessment of things, because I think so many people, Vivek, are shocked by what they're seeing happen, by the things that are being uncovered.
I mean, sadly, I'm not surprised, but what I am pleasantly surprised by is how united people across the country are against this waste, fraud, and abuse at the level of our government. I thought President Trump did an outstanding job in his joint address, just laying out hard facts of where U.S. taxpayer money has gone. This first step of at least letting sunlight be a disinfectant, of actually getting that bureaucracy out of the way. That's a requirement to revive our economy, to fight our national debt. And I would even say to revive our core American spirit, which is not a bureaucratic one at its core.
So whenever you left DOGE, there were a lot of people speculating, why is Vivek leaving? What's going on? You're now announcing, of course, you are running for governor.
Yeah.
Is that the reason you left?
Well, a lot of my opponents, including on the left, like to push a lot of narratives. I don't think there's much needed to clarify. I was grateful on day one to get both President Trump's endorsement and Elon's endorsement. Elon and I have been friends for years. The fact of the matter is every one of us has to look ourselves in the mirror and say, where are we going to have our biggest possible impact? So my plan had always been to run for governor. One of the ways that President Trump is going to be successful is to take a lot of those programs that should have never been in Washington, D.C. and kick them down to the states. That's the great first step to saving the country. But there's a second step then involved too, which it requires strong governors who share that same outlook to be able to do the right thing with each of those programs, from education to healthcare. The center of gravity then of saving the country will move in the next 2 years from the federal government, where Donald Trump is doing an outstanding job right now, back down to the states and to the people where it belongs. And I want to say a word about my home state here. I was born in Cincinnati, about an hour and a half from where we are in Columbus today. I don't just want to lead Ohio to be one of the better states in the Midwest, which admittedly is what it is today. I want to lead Ohio to be the best state in the country, to grow a new business, to raise a young family, both of which are near and dear to my heart. I'm an entrepreneur who's raising young kids. I want this to be the best state in the country to do that. And there are just so many basic, relatively simple fixes that would allow a state like Ohio to be that state again.
Wherever Vivek lands, he will be completely fine. He started DOGE with Elon Musk. Now he is running for governor of Ohio. Vivek is a smart guy. I think he'll do really well. He's intelligent, he's bright. And the fact of the matter is, I think he'll win. I think he'll win. He did a pretty good job at his run during his presidential campaign. I think this will be a great toe or foot in the water for him to gauge how the political atmosphere works. Let me know what you guys think about Vivek. Let me know what you guys think about all the topics of today. If you're not part of the Discord group link is in the description down below. You can connect with like-minded patriots just like yourself in the comment section. You can connect with them. It is a great opportunity for us to build community. This is why I started the Discord group. Let me know what you guys think about all these topics. Drop it down in the comment section down below. And do me a kind favor on your way out. Smash the like button, share, subscribe. And as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.